How's it hangin', hunters? I've been doing lots of testing with Cash, and not gonna lie, he's absolutely broken. I've mostly been looking into Blue Tree, trying to see if I can make specialized builds for each card in his tree. And some of these cards are pretty insane. For my first build, I'll be working with the Freezing Shards card, as a method of proccing Groundbreaker, in order to get some cracked one-shots. Kinda like this. There's a couple different versions of this build on YouTube at the moment, but most of them spec into overbuffing anti-up or tender hearts. What I'd like to do with my Cardbreaker Cash is to actually use a class mod as more than a stat stick, because everyone knows that's what guns are for. To start off, it's essential that we run the Hot Slugger, as the one ammo mag benefits multiple aspects of the build. There's no specific wrap kit that I use. Kill Spring is my default wrap kit. I don't really use any ordnance. Use the crit knife if you think you need it. Since we aren't actually using guns, enhancements don't matter either. However, rolling reload speed and fire rate will help the Hot Slugger with triggering Windfall. No surprise here, Watts is still best in slot. However, you could also run Protean Cell or Elpis Star. Now our class mod is actually very important to the build. The Whale class mod will convert all action skill cooldown into damage. And while you can regain cooldown by gaining fortune stacks, our main method of regaining action skill makes this unnecessary. It's also possible to roll 5 points into payout, however the build runs fine without it. For our firmware, we are slotting 3 points into Skillcraft, which gives us 65% skill damage at max stacks. GOOJFC is also a solid choice, losing about 10% DPS at 3 points over Skillcraft. We also slot 2 points of Action Fist, as we heavily rely on action skill and melee damage. Starting off the skill tree, we have 1 point of Alchemy. This is an essential to every non-kinetic cash build, and directly synergizes with Vigorish, giving us lots of fortune stacks. Next is 5 points into Fast Hands, to give us an extra 30% windfall chance at max fortune. The reload speed is also pretty good for our build, since the Hot Slugger's rate of fire is tied to its reload speed. In the next layer, we start with 5 points of Go for Broke, which will help keep our fortune stacks maxed out. Since we have multiple avenues of gaining fortune stacks, this ends up being a lot more consistent than it sounds on paper. We use 2 of our points for Late Scratch and the Augment slot. Late Scratch gives us more fortune stacks, due to low limit reducing our windfall chance. We put our final 2 points into Trick Taker. It's not very important to our build. However, we need to move down the tree, and there isn't anything better in this chunk. Moving on to the middle branch, we put 5 points into Around the Corner, giving us 100% action skill, cooldown at max fortune stacks. This may seem higher than normal. Don't worry, we'll get there. We have 4 points into Ace in the Hole. Funnily enough, this is currently bugged, only giving about 1/10 of the damage bonus listed. However, Cash Game is even worse, actively nerfing your damage when not in Windfall. So we run this instead. House Edge makes it so that Windfall only consumes half stacks, giving our fortune skills a minimum of 10 stacks to scale with, basically negating any need for Cash Game anyways. No Limit is a key skill to increase our damage. Always put max points into this. The downside of having lower windfall chance is negligible when you double your fortune stacks. With Fast Hands, we are able to trigger windfall consistently. Anti-up is probably the most important aspect of this build, besides the cooler augment, due to the formula used to calculate anti-up, which looks like this. Gun or skill damage % times your fortune stacks and current ammo, all divided by your gun's mag size.
Thank you.
I left a link to Ancient's video in the comments. In the right tree, we're dropping 5 into payout. With 5 from the Whale, we get an 80% buff to fortune skills. This is pretty big, as Around the Corner will also receive this bonus, giving us 180% action skill cooldown. Next is Card Sharp. This gives us more cards to spam to build Groundbreaker. Personally, I like having 5 points into this, but you could also take this down to 3 points, which would allow you to put 5 points into the next skill. Tender Hearts gives you crit damage for all sources, and crit chance for action skills. It's just personal preference. Both skills are pretty good in terms of DPS. Our final point in this branch is for Hot Streak, which gives us guaranteed crits when we gain fortune stacks. What the skill doesn't tell you is that these automatic crits can stack. I've heard that it has weird interactions with Late Scratch and Go for Broke, but it's hard to tell when everything dies in one action skill cycle. Personally, I haven't noticed. The only things we care about in Left Tree is Vigorish and the cooler Augment. I put the first 5 into High Roller for a sprinkle of extra DPS. Now Vigorish is fairly important, as it gives us bonus elemental damage with the Hot Slugger, allowing us to proc Alchemy when not throwing cards. This effect can stack, theoretically giving you bonus cryo, fire, and corrosive damage when you finish your action skill. For augments we run Cowboy, in part for the insane damage Acid Spray can do, but also for its special effect, being able to refresh your action skill by entering Windfall. This overrides the Whale class mod, preventing you from regaining your action skill, as you can't lose fortune stacks without entering Windfall. At max stacks you can't regain action skill cooldown, leaving Cowboy as the only way. The cooler augment is actually crazy, doubling our Windfall bonuses and giving us the Freezing Shards card, which does melee damage and can proc Groundbreaker. Groundbreaker double dips into skill damage, which sits around 650% on this build, while also inheriting every action skill damage buff due to stored damage. You really only need like 5 to 6 cards before you proc Groundbreaker to one-shot most bosses. For specializations, we obviously start with Groundbreaker, as the build quite simply won't work without it. It stores the total damage dealt by guns, action skills, and ordnance over the previous 5 seconds, and reapplies 20% of that damage as bonus kinetic melee damage. Melee damage, due to bare arms, is affected by gun damage, which is affected by anti-up, meaning not only does Groundbreaker double dip into skill damage, it also has its own 300 to 400% damage bonus, because it's melee damage. This melee bonus is from bare arms, which applies 50% gun damage bonuses as melee bonuses. Next is lmao gun, which is the exact same thing as bare arms, but applies to skill damage instead of melee. And we finish our specializations with a honed mind, giving us action skill crit chance and a chunky 50% action skill crit damage. When all of the gears are turning for this build, Groundbreaker procs will hit for multiple millions of damage on UVH6, making pretty short work of anything in the game. If you're still struggling with Bloom Reaper, this build shreds that stupid thing too. That's all I've got for this one. Next cash vid will probably hit next week. I hope you guys like Ordnance.